I'm Dr. Frawley, and I'd like to tell you about our comprehensive reading program, Everyone Gets a Great Start. The acronym is E.G.G.S, and that's what we'll be calling our program from now on. E.G.G.S is really the marriage, blending of two different ideas, philosophy and education. Let me tell you about the education part first. Several years ago, the National Institute of Child Health and Development and National Reading Panel went through 100,000 research reports trying to identify the skills that children needed in order to learn to read, since literacy in this country was at a catastrophic level. After going through all the research reports, they identified 5 factors that children needed. They need phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Well, that's the education piece, and that's a piece we're going to really focus on later. But then the philosophical portion is really comes from the philosophy of someone named Frawley. His idea was that in order for someone to be competent, you needed to address all the skills at one time. For example, if you're going to ride a bike, you don't first learn to steer, then to pedal, then to pump, then to balance. You learn all the skills at one point. While you're learning these skills, you're at the focal attention part of learning the skills. Once the skills are mastered, you go to the tacit understanding where these skills are used in conjunction with one another, but they go to another level so that you can focus on comprehension. Well, that's what E.G.G.S does. E.G.G.S basically takes all the 5 skills that you need to read, puts them in one lesson so that you learn all the skills at one time. You don't learn phonological awareness and then a year later learn phonics, and then 2 years later when you're a slow reader, learn to do things fluently. We put everything together. And these are the materials that we're using. We use the blocks as not only a behavior modification, positive reinforcement portion of the lesson, but we use them also in order to help the children become fluent, recalling the sounds and blending the sounds and matching the sounds to the animals. These are the letter cards that we use, and the letter cards are not only durable, but the surface is raised. So when the child learns that this is the, and it starts words like velocipede, van, Victor, they trace the card, and the raised portion sends a message through their neurological system that this is a the. So we also use animals. Now animals are used to reinforce the phonological part and to reinforce the phonics and the shapes and sounds of the letters. And another example, this is Abigail the alligator. He goes on the throughout the lessons. Now, why do we even bother with animals? Because amazingly enough, children not only link the sounds and the shapes together, but when they see an animal, it helps them to recall what the sound of the letter is. I can't tell you the number of children that say, look at this and say, oh, alligator, and they'll be able to match them well. We also have letter formation sheets because it's important as children learn the sounds of the letters that they also learn how to make the letters. We're not going to teach the sound and the shape of the letter and then a year later teach you how to make the letter. Children are expected in kindergarten to be able to write in journals, to do a lot of recall of the shape of letters. Well, in order to do that, they need to practice and practice making the letters correctly. So on these sheets, we ask the children to begin where the pencil is, to make the letter, and as they make and reinforce the shape of the letter, to say the pattern of letter formation. Down here, the boxes, when they get all through with the X, to make something, 2 pictures that start with X. This is an additional reinforcer. Every lesson we have is built to incorporate all the skills that we've talked about. There's no lesson that stands in isolation. Every lesson also goes from simple to complex. Our phonological awareness follows a series where first of all we listen, we count syllables, we identify sounds, we break them up, we put them together. Phonics is the same part. We learn the shapes of the letters and the sounds and we associate them, then blend them together, do word families, so the children very shortly are reading stories which links them to print. If I hold this up and say to you, or say to the children, this is, It's only because I say it is. There's no logic or reason to our alphabet for a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old. But if I then teach you some sounds and I blend them together and have you actually read a word, that makes sense. This is the point of this. Nothing that we do can be truly accomplished unless there's some reason for it. So we like to tell the children what they're going to do and how the lesson is going to progress. This is not only true in phonological awareness, it's true in phonics, it's true in our fluency. All of them blend together. Vocabulary, whenever we come to a word, and even in the word families, there are some words that are relatively obscure for young kids, like lad. Who knows what a lad is anymore? So we talk about what the words mean as we encounter them not only in the families, but in the stories we read to the children and have the children read. We also, throughout the comprehension, go from the simple to the complex. First of all, talking about the main idea, and then, well, what would you change in the story? Who would you like to be? What do you think the idea of the story is? So again, moving from simple to complex, but integrating all the parts of reading into every single lesson. Lest you think that this program doesn't have some background, I'd like you to know that we've been doing this program in public schools for 6 years and worked with hundreds and hundreds of children. We have bar graphs and all kinds of measurements that can show you the growth they've made, how kids without skills have caught up with the kids who had skills, and how they're able to really use those skills by the end of the year. All these things are measurable, but what to us is immeasurable and probably the most valuable is the increase in self-esteem that we see in these kids as we work with them throughout the school year. When they come into the program and work with us, they're shy and reticent and don't want to really raise their hand. But as the year progresses, they're the first ones when they go back into their classroom who volunteer to answer a question, who can retrieve information quickly, who can blend words, who can build words, and who smile and laugh when we walk into the room because they know they're going to have a very pleasurable experience. This program has been a benefit not only to us who deliver the service, but to the hundreds and hundreds of kids that we've served throughout the years.